Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige took place in the main event of UFC Fight Night 172 Fight Island. Kattar versus Ige, and I'll be honest with you guys, it was not the fight I was expecting. I thought it was going to be an all-out war start to finish, and the finish wasn't going to be that long into the fight. I thought it was going to be a second round TKO for Calvin Kattar over Dan Ige. I assumed that Dan Ige was going to come out there and just win the first round because Kattar seems too okay to take some shots while he's making calculations sometimes, and then Kattar was going to come out there in the second round and completely batter Dan Ige. But in the second round, Dan Ige broke the nose of Calvin Kattar by the sounds of things with a nice little jab. Calvin Kattar also broke his nose against Jeremy Stephens, which I thought wasn't actually broken, but it was broken, so I have no idea how he got cleared to fight. He must have hidden that from people backstage, because there's no way they would have allowed him to fight 2 months later after breaking his nose. That makes no sense whatsoever. People get suspensions for 6 months for a cut on their forehead. There's no way they'd let him fight. But so he must have hidden that from the commission, and it came into this fight as well, and it immediately got broken again in the second round. So what we ended up seeing actually was 5 rounds to Calvin Kattar. He just scored Dan Ige over 5 rounds. Wasn't the most entertaining in the world, I'll be honest with you guys. It wasn't the statement I was looking for, because I'll be honest, this fight card wasn't the best in the world in terms of finishes. There wasn't many whatsoever on the card, especially on the main card as well, actually. I don't think there was a single finish on the main card, if I remember correctly. And Kattar, I felt like, had a real chance to steal the show at the end with a big KO. Instead, he chose not to do that. Won the fight, in my opinion, 4 rounds to 1. I haven't really looked at the official stats yet, and the recount, I'm sure they're going to be coming out soon. But the stats that I saw, and the stats that I thought I saw in the middle of the fight as well, that I was counting myself, I had Kattar up on strikes in round 3. I had him down on strikes in round 2. And Dan Ige secured round 2 in my opinion. But round 3, round 1, round 4, and round 5 went to Kattar. Even if you're going to argue another round for Ige, you could maybe argue round 3. I don't think that happened. I thought Kattar had a pretty decent moments in round 3 that could have secured him that fight. He had the big moments where he landed the big shots. And according to the current strikes, he outstruck Dan Ige in that round. I noticed a lot that Dan Ige's strikes in a lot of those rounds were landing on the arms of Calvin Kattar and weren't actually sneaking through to the target. So I thought for a second that maybe the judges were going to start counting some of those strikes. So it could have been 3-2. Who knows? But I think that Calvin Kattar won those other rounds. Even though he won the fight anyway, 3 rounds to 2. He won those other rounds, especially round 3. Because he landed the cleaner shots, it was more clear that his shots landed. Not to mention, Ige seemed to react differently when Kattar hit Ige than when Ige hit Kattar. When Ige hit Kattar, it was like, yeah, good fucking job, Dan Ige. But when Kattar landed on Ige, it was like, yeah, you know, maybe he's going to go down again. Because Ige had some moments in this fight where he's in trouble, and Kattar showed a little bit of versatility here. I actually don't mind this performance. A lot of people are going to be shitting on Kattar, saying that, you should have made it look easy. Dan Ige is not a top-level fighter. He got a fucking gifted a decision against Edson Barboza. He doesn't belong in there with Calvin Kattar. But Dan Ige is a dangerous, dangerous guy. Beat Masad Bektik. Masad Bektik is no slouch in that featherweight division. Just outside the rankings, but still, a legit guy in that division. Was 6-1 not too long ago before his recent losses. Okay, he was a good guy in that division, and Dan Ige got the jump on him. I like Dan Ige. I think he's a very good fighter. I think he is very good, and I think he could compete quite well with some of the better guys in that division. One thing I did notice in this fight between the pair of them, and one reason why I think it maybe wasn't as exciting as we maybe first thought it was going to be, was both guys seemed very aware that they had 5 rounds. And sometimes this can be good because it makes them more amped up to not want to go 5 rounds and just want to get it over with early. But it also, I think in this case, both guys were majorly concerned about going 5 rounds for the first time in their career. And they were very conservative about it, you know, very right wing. They were very conservative about it. They conserved their energy. They picked their shots very well. I thought Dan Ige could have been a little bit more aggressive. The leg kicks could have came out a bit more from Calvin Kattar. I feel like the leg kick on Dan Ige would work wonders against him. The way he stands with his knees pointing, it looks like leg kicks would work really well against Dan Ige. It's the same way Wonderboy stands, but he has nowhere near the level of Wonderboy's footwork. I'm not making that comparison whatsoever, but Dan Ige's good. Listen, I think if Dan Ige fights some of those top guys, it's going to be a scrap. Kyle Bochniak made a scrap with Zabit Magomedsharipov. It would not be anything out of the ordinary if Dan Ige were to make that somehow competitive as well. But Calvin Kattar stole the show. No, he didn't. He didn't steal the show. But he had a great performance. And in my opinion, he stole the show. Maybe not in the fans that aren't really paying too much attention to the sport and just tuned in for the first time tonight to watch a card, or haven't been tuning in and don't really know too much about the sport. But what Calvin Kattar did to Dan Ige was neutralize him for 5 rounds. And it's not like Dan Ige wasn't trying. Dan Ige was going for good takedowns. He was in deep on multiple takedowns, and Calvin Kattar just shook him off every single time. Every single time he shook the takedowns off. I think what Calvin Kattar chose to do tonight, maybe, he had 2 choices coming into tonight. He could either steal the show and boost his profile tremendously, or, number 2, he could show us some things. And I think he showed us some things and addressed some things as well. Showed us that he's not just there to be leg kicked anymore. Showed us that he's not just this KO power guy who's going to lose the round until he gets you with a KO. Showed us that he can actually outstrike people, because one problem that Calvin Kattar has had in a lot of his fights, Andre Fili was doing good volume-wise against Calvin Kattar. Shane Burgos was even coming back against Calvin Kattar in that second round, starting to outland him and go to the body quite a bit. Calvin Kattar has had a problem in his fights previously, where he's just been outlanded too much. And I think he wanted to show tonight that he can outland guys and win rounds the real way, rather than just sneaking them with big moments, which he's managed to do. But he often finishes the fights anyway, so he doesn't even need the decision. But I think what he did tonight was showed us a few more things. He can't be taken down. I'm dead confirmed about, I don't see anyone in that division being able to wrestle with Calvin Kattar whatsoever. I genuinely don't. There was a moment in the 4th round when Dan Ige had Calvin Kattar in the air, and Kattar just bounced up from the floor, used the momentum, somehow stayed on his feet in the 4th round. And those takedowns can win Ige rounds, because Ige's no slouch on the ground. Really is no slouch on the ground. He's got a real good ground game, and I thought that was the one single issue there could have been in this game, as if Ige was somehow better at grappling than Zabit Magomedsharipov, and what Zabit couldn't do, Dan Ige would be able to do. That was the only way. If we were completely wrong about everything we knew and loved about the sport, that was the only way that Dan Ige would win. If we were just dead wrong on everything we know, and there was something we didn't know, and Ige was just a phenomenal grappler and had been flying under the radar this entire time. He just didn't have it for Ige. He just didn't have it for Kattar, sorry. He didn't have enough. He didn't throw enough. He didn't grit down and go, because I feel like, and I said this in my live stream after the fight was over, Dan Ige chose less success, but guaranteed not getting KO'd, compared to high success, but potentially getting KO'd. I hate to see it. I also respect it, kind of, because I would not want to get KO'd, and I'm not going to be a guy that says you should just go out there and throw caution to the wind if you're behind and go broke and go for the finish. But it was just pretty obvious that once Dan Ige felt the power of Calvin Kattar, he's like, right, I'm not going to get hit by that anymore, because if I do, I'm going to get KO'd. He got hurt to the body with a jumping front kick to the body from Calvin Kattar in the 1st round, I believe. He clenched his chest, he went down, he dropped again in round 1. I think that might have been in round 3 where Kattar landed that front kick, but in round 1 Kattar landed a good body shot and Ige shot for a takedown afterwards, and you can kind of tell he was rocked there as well to the body, somewhat hurting, because it wasn't a normal takedown. It was kind of like, I'm on my way to the canvas, let me grab onto Calvin Kattar on the way there, kind of, rather than a takedown. Like, there were a few moments where Kattar hurt him to the body, but I think overall it just showed that Kattar can do more than what we thought he could. He can go 5 rounds. He can outstrike someone who's an elite level fighter in a division. Dan Ige is no slouch, and even, I said this before the fight happened, I have so much respect for Dan Ige, because a lot of people just look at the decision of a fight, and they're angry that Ige robbed Barboza, and Barboza didn't get the decision, so everyone's just crapping on Ige. What Ige showed us is, maybe in a 5-rounder he beats Barboza. He was winning that 3rd round. Barboza gasses out as the fight goes on. If they rematch over 5 rounds, I would not mind Dan Ige as an underdog that I'm sure he would be. Dan Ige showed he could scrap with Barboza, take the shots from Barboza, take the leg kicks from Barboza, make it close against Barboza at least. So I wanted to respect him in that way, and not just look at the fact that he didn't win, but look at what he competed with. He made it close with Barboza, even though he lost. Made it close, which means he's somewhat equal to the skill level at least. So I was going to give him that credit coming into this one. I gave him that credit. I still thought he was going to get KO'd in round 2. But you know what? Calvin Kattar couldn't find the KO punch, mainly because Dan Ige was moving backwards the whole time instead of gritting down and going forwards. I think Kattar expected a different fight as well, but as soon as Dan Ige showed that he wasn't there to grit and throw for the fucking swing for the bleachers, Kattar just said, okay, well, eat this jab and stay away from me. I'm just going to outstrike you for 3 or 4 of the 5 rounds. Clean win from Calvin Kattar. Didn't get the big boom of popularity I was hoping. I took it down. I had his Instagram loaded up before the event started, and I was going to refresh it afterwards. I believe he had 71k before the event, if I remember correctly. Maybe 74k. We're going to see how much this main event is. He has 75.3k. He's really not getting any followers after that one. Interesting indeed. Very, very interesting. I don't know what we're going to have to do to get Kattar known by the masses, because these other guys seem to get a much bigger name. But listen, if you win main event fights, fair enough he didn't do it in a casually appealing style. I thought it was a work of art what he did, but you know, a lot of people see fights differently depending on how many fights they watch in their time. But I think from now on what we found out is, and what we found out from recent history in the UFC, if you win a main event bout, you then get on main events in the future or main cards of pay-per-views. Calvin Kattar has earned his way a guaranteed path on the main card of a pay-per-view or a main event of a fight night. People will start to pay attention as long as he wins. And even if he loses, I'll watch Calvin Kattar every single time, because his boxing is some of the nicest in the UFC. I mean, Dan Ige was doing good. He was landing some decent shots, but everything cleaner was on Kattar's side. He clearly outstruck him for 3 of the rounds. He could have lost 1 in round 2. I thought Ige maybe stole that round in round 2, but that was a round where Calvin Kattar broke his nose, I believe. Came back in round 3. I think edged round 3 as well against Dan Ige, but that round was close. So who cares who that round went to? It could have gone either way. I thought that Calvin Kattar landed the better shots, and it said that he landed more, and I kind of counted that he landed more as well. Good performance from Calvin Kattar, though. Thank you for watching. He called out everyone in the top of the division, saying that they don't fight. I think he should have been a little bit more emphasizing on who, and say some names, because name dropping in MMA is an easy way to make some headlines. But he didn't. He just called out Volkanovski. He said he wants to champ. That's not going to happen. A little bit of a waste of a call out, but still. Charles Oliveira is calling out people that he's not going to get fights with, and he seems to make headlines. So maybe Calvin Kattar will make headlines as well. Who knows? I just think that the next fight for Calvin Kattar is probably going to be either Max Holloway, if Holloway's a savage, which I don't think Holloway's going to take on Calvin Kattar. I think Holloway's going to wait for the loser of Ortega Zombie or the loser of Zabit versus Yair. And I think Calvin Kattar, there's going to be 2 fights coming up. Ortega versus Zombie, Zabit versus Yair. One of the winners of those 2 bouts is not going to get a title shot. Whoever that winner is should fight Calvin Kattar, in my opinion. So if Zabit wins, give him a title shot. If Yair wins, give him a title shot. And if the other guy gets shafted, let's say Ortega wins, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Korean Zombie wins. But let's say Ortega wins, just for the purpose of this little thought exercise I'm going with. And Zabit Magomedsharipov wins. Give Zabit the title shot. I don't think Zabit wins either. Hang on. If Ortega wins, and Yair wins, which I think will happen in a 5-rounder, give Yair the title shot, because we've already seen Ortega lose, and he'll only be on a 1-fight win streak then, and give Ortega to Calvin Kattar. But for Calvin Kattar, just wait around and see what happens in these big matchups in the division at the top. Hopefully they sign to fight each other soon, because I am sick of fucking waiting around for Ortega versus the Korean Zombie and Yair Rodriguez versus Zabit Magomedsharipov. I've been waiting years for Zabit versus Yair. Make it fucking happen. I know you want a 3-rounder, Zabit, and I'm assuming that Yair wants it over 5 rounds, and that's maybe why it's taken so long to make. Fucking get it done, because I'm fucking bored. Make those fucking fights, so we don't have cards like this. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Good scrap. Thank you for watching.